was a good point that Matt brought up about.
You don't have
thanks,
to say
Sean.
that.
You know, yeah, no, like having too much. It was years back when I tried to do that 15 acres. A farmer would do 10, and I'm like, I'm going to do 5 acres of, leave me 5 acres of beans or 6 acres of beans. And I was paying a little more. And there was a couple of guys, and Kelly Turner from the team. I mean, he's killed some giants over the years. I told him, I said, hey, I'm not down there late season. If you want to go down there, try to punch a tag. There might be a buck that's hitting those late beans, or shoot a few does, whatever you want. Just have at it, just keep an eye on the place. And he got a hold of me, and it was a point. He said, you've got so many deer piling into your beans, but the problem is they were coming from the neighbors, and there was too much there for them.
This segment of DoD TV is brought to you by Leupold, American to the core.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild Podcast, episode number 213. Yo soy Tim Chelsvik.
Applause for Tim.
Thank you.
I'm Matt Drury.
You suck, man.
Oh,
That's what I get.
poor Matt. It'll just be a matter of time before I get a "you suck, Tim."
Well, it's there. People say it.
It just hasn't been recorded.
We just haven't. I'm sure it has.
Hold on, say that again.
You suck, Tim.
Thank you.
Hold on, one more time. You suck, Tim. Matt, clip that off.
Flag it.
All right.
Episode 213, we're talking small parcel food plots, mostly based off of feedback that we got from a couple episodes ago. Some of our watchers, listeners said, you guys should talk about smaller food plots, plots that normal guys put in. It's like, well,
we should. So we put our heads together, like Three Stooges style.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought we got a guy on the team.
We do got a guy
that does this kind of stuff. So in preparation, I'm going to say, this guy, he's a Fear the Beard kind of guy. Sean Lundy's on Critical Mass. He commands a hell of a social media audience, but I thought I better get a workout in, a pump in before Sean comes onto the podcast, because this guy is jacked.
He's jacked in a good way.
What's a bad way?
I don't know. Like your jaw's kind of busted up or something.
Like you're jacked up, fugly, like
yes.
Okay.
Or on goofballs. So, Mr. Sean Lundy, how are you, man?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you.
We're lucky to have him, because this guy's on like the podcast. Between him and Greg, they're on the podcast circuit out there. Every week I look on their social media, they're promoting another podcast, and it's like, man, these guys are in high demand. I saw you just did one. Was it like in New York or out east somewhere, right?
Yeah, it was one of New York City urban bow hunter. He did one out there. It was pretty good. So.
I thought that was pretty cool, actually. Something different,
Yep.
Did they give you a hard time about your Indiana accent?
No, I originally being from New York, I somewhat still have the accent, but the more I'm out in Indiana, I've actually lived in Indiana now longer than I've lived in New York. So you still hear it every once in a while.
Yeah, when you say New York.
Loud and clear.
Yep.
So give us a little rundown for anybody hiding under a rock. Give us a little rundown on your background, where you grew up, how you got into hunting, like the quick version, and then we'll kind of start diving into some stuff.
Yeah, basically, I was born and raised in New York, Long Island, New York, which is known for actually some pretty decent hunting, but it's mostly the bow hunting out there. But when I was 17 years old, I enlisted into the Marine Corps and traveled from there. I told my parents I'll just do one enlistment and kind of get out. And I wasn't a college person at that time. I probably would have wasted a lot of money. So I went into Marines, and when I was there, I met a lot of guys and girls from the Midwest. If you're about whitetails and turkey hunting, Midwest, that's where you want to be. So venturing out and visiting, I told my parents, I said, I'm probably going to settle down somewhere out in the Midwest, and Indiana is where it was. But mostly because my whole family has been law enforcement, military, and I still wanted to get involved in the law enforcement. So I got my foot in the door in Indiana, working in the correctional facility as a prison guard. Then from there, made my way to working as a regular police officer on the road. And you guys see the beard, eventually made my way into a narcotics task force working for a federal agency. So
that's pretty cool.
Interesting.
And that's what you do today, still today. And we called you on Critical Mass. He was our undercover agent. Like that was his moniker. Like we made it look real, sound real.
You put sunglasses on, you don't know who he is.
Oh, he looks like he's from ZZ Top at this point. That beard's like 2 foot long.
That's the one. You guys make us look like rock stars, and I've always said that. So I'm here, and I'm gonna be here as long as I can. So I love it.
That's those editors, man. We've always been lucky. We got good. We got a good team.
Yep.
Doesn't hurt.
It's not like Mark and Terry are hitting the buttons. They're not clicking the mice and tapping J.
You got the Deercast abacus in the background they're working on.
Yeah.
Just keeping things
That's
rolling.
right. They're on the Deercast abacus. That's right.
We had some feedback from from last week's show, the Mammoth Steaks fake news show.
I hope people lit you up for that. I because we were talking about it, I started getting Google like ads and stuff about articles about mammoth.
It ruined your search history.
Yeah, I'm like, dang it, Tim. Literally, there was just an article about like a baby mammoth that they brought back to, like, they're bringing back to life with its DNA or whatever.
And then they're going to eat it.
I'm sure.
And I'll be vindicated.
That's right.
It all comes full circle.
Turtle, mammoth.
Whatever.
You got to go back to the last episode and listen to it if you don't know what we're talking about. Tim looked foolish. Must be that public education that he has, as he likes to say about me in the wildlife world.
It was my first time looking like an idiot.
Well,
first and last. It will never happen again.
Anybody that says it that way,
hey-o.
you're not a douche.
Thank you. All right. So Paul Anier, one of our Deercast writers, chimed in on Deercast. He said, I actually enjoy the non-deer episodes of the show. Not everything needs to be so serious all the time.
You missed something. He said, ha ha in there.
Or it could be, ha ha. It could have been that. What is this extra breath you threw in there, Paul? Definitely not that.
No? Okay. Evan Ferguson on YouTube about the same mammoth show says, Matt, you can use one of the plastic totes that comes in a steel cage to house your pallet of analogics. Just unscrew the steel crossbars on top and cut the plastic tote in a way that the top will sit back on. They're usually really cheap to buy, used, like under $50. Okay, so he's talking about, we were mentioning that the coons got into my pallet of analogics and made a gigantic mess at the lease, and everybody that is involved in farming the lease or living on the lease was upset with Matt.
And some feedback for you. Clean up your mess.
Yeah. So Scott, luckily, he is such a nice guy, and he went and took care of the problem. We had a bunch of these gigantic totes here.
Yep.
And basically, he just filled those up, put some, I don't know, Scott, did you put a big pallet on the top of it? Ratchet strap the top of it.
There you go.
No more coons in the totes.
Sweet. Coons are going to be missing out on a good meal, though.
Well, by all reports, they're the biggest coons you've ever seen.
No doubt. For either small bears or large raccoons.
If they don't have horns or antlers or whatever, I wonder if their fur was just like extra thick. Like that's what the analogics did.
Soft and shiny.
Yeah.
Full of luster.
Don't know at this time of year that they want extra thick.
Yeah. That could be nasty.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for your feedback, folks. If you want to give us some feedback, just drop us a comment there in Deercast or on the YouTube, wherever you watch us.
On the YouTube.
And give us a rating. Heck, while you're at it.
Make it a 5.
Listening.
Out of 5.
Thanks for clearing that up.
You never know.
If you're listening, especially like via iTunes or whatever, that's the best place to leave us.
Well, yeah. And you can watch us on iTunes now. We talked about it last week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we fancy.
If you want to watch us, we're there. If you want to listen to us, you can listen to us.
If we're talking about something and you feel like we're getting very animated, like I am right now,
nice
with
job.
my hands, you can only see that
what to do with
on
hands.
the video version.
It does make sense. Like Matt edits Matt Arndt edits the show,
Master producer Matt,
and he throws in a lot of great B-roll. So like he augments.
There
the
is
audio.
a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Matt's an augmenter,
right? And so is Sean.
Fancy.
Sean cares about the dirt.
Sean's like, why am I here?
Yep.
No, I'm enjoying this. This is comical. So I can watch this more often.
Like funny how? Like I'm funny like a clown?
Sounds like people watch this.
No, entertaining.
So Sean, take us through your kind of the ground that you hunt. Like what size parcels are you typically on, and what's your philosophy for managing them for the best bucks you can?
You know, here in Indiana and in the piece I have in Illinois, I've got several different pieces, but the largest piece I hunt is 42 acres. The majority of them are anywhere from 15 to 30, 35 acres. So if it's got tillable on it, I definitely try to work with the farmer, whether it's something in Illinois, we own that piece. So it's something where, if you want to get some income back or just kind of trade crops, I usually make a deal every year that no matter what they're planting, corn or beans, I try to set the muddies up, sitting over, I'll stake it out with flags, and I'll say, hey, we're going to leave. Granted, they do not pay to farm that ground, but in return, I'm getting a free food plot. And if you look at the price of corn and beans now, and letting a field grow up, having a farmer farm it, you're working with the farmers, you're building good relationships, but it's kind of maintaining the farm when you're not there. And so I'll usually, on those parcels, I'll go ahead and keep back about acre and a half, sometimes in one spot, sometimes in two separate spots. And then the other time, I'm a big, perennial person, planting the clovers and stuff like that, for the fact that, with the right sprays and with mowing it, it takes a little while to get it established. But ultimately, if you have a bad, let's say, fall plot growing season, we usually plant where I'm from, last week of July, first week of August for your deer radishes, et cetera. If you get a bad thing going with that, the only thing you might have to turn back on is those row crops from the farmer and your clover plots. So
in Illinois, how big of how much ag you talking here? It's because it's smaller parcels. So how much ag does the farmer put in when you're saying you take maybe an acre and a half of it?
Okay. So the one piece where he's row cropping, it's probably about 15 acres of tillable.
Okay.
And we leave about an acre and a half in return. Now that 15 acres, Matt, was just a grown up field before we purchased the ground. And I thought, man, I'm going to try to plant this myself. Well, living 6-7 hours away, 15 acres, you don't have the equipment. You can't do it.
Yeah.
So I checked with a farmer, and at first he thought, I'm just going to plant this because it was a parcel that was always sat in between his ground that he farms. And the first year was great because he planted it, left all the beans standing just to keep the deer on my ground and off of his beans.
Oh, that's
but at the end of the season, he went and harvested it and made a little money. So, at that point I said, hey, let's just make a trade, harvest what you can every year and just leave me about an acre and a half, right in that particular area. So
sounds like a win-win.
Symbiosis.
Because to purchase a couple acres, you're looking at, you might look at $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever, because they'll charge you whatever they're getting for the price, of harvest. So,
yeah, that's what happened in Indiana this year. I've got a place in corn and beans, and it's going into corn this year. Last year, before everything happened with the economy and stuff, the plan was just go ahead and leave it there. When I talked to him this year, he's going to have for 1 acre about minimum of $1,000. If you look at seed, diesel fuel, Roundup Ready corn. Yeah. So it's one of those where we're not going to be going with a full acre. We might go to, half acre, whatever the case may be, because just
leave that last row, buddy.
Yeah, just leave it, whatever's left. So, and then when we having that and having the clover, at least in my experience, the only difficulty I've had with it is getting it established. Once you get it established, it's actually a pretty hardy plant. I mean, you look at Matt, you just posted something, clover in your yard. I mean, a lot of these places they actually you spray 2,4-D in your yard, that clover starts to get used to it and there's no killing it.
Yeah. Well, that's because in my stories on Instagram, I was talking about how I can't grow grass and I got a very hardy, as you said, patch of clover growing up in my yard. And it was funny because we were out in the neighborhood driving around, and Jared and Justin Lurk have a brother, Jason. Well, we live in the same neighborhood, and he was out spraying weed killer on his grass. And him and Justin, their yards are immaculate. Yeah. Like they look pristine, like golf course worthy. He's like, yeah, just trying to kill that clover. And I look at Randy, I was like, hell, that's the only thing I got. I was like, we can't be killing the clover. It's the only thing I'll have green come July.
Yep. So. Kind of the same way. Clover, crabgrass, zoysia grass, Kentucky blue, like
pretty solid.
I got a lot of diversity in my
That's right.
land.
But I have a lot of rabbits in the yard.
So, yeah, I'm sure they appreciate it.
That's right.
Our wildlife word is actually about clover.
I see.
So
see what we did there?
Folks will want to stick around for that.
That's what she said.
Probably did. What other? So you've got some ag on your properties. How about food plots? Like, what do you like? What are some of your go-to blends?
Yeah, I've got there again, just trying to work with, minimum size properties. I had about a little 1/4 acre piece that sat in the middle of that 42 acre piece that we have. Mm-hmm. And it just wasn't enough. It wasn't getting enough sun. And then again, trying to use your property to, benefit and to get in there to open up an acre and a half, you're going to need dozers. You're going to need heavy equipment. So me and the wife decided we're going to have loggers come in. And the first year we had some loggers come in and it was a trade. There was probably on that acre and a half, there was probably, I'd say 20, 30 marketable oak trees. So he was going to come in there, clear it out with the understanding in so many years, he's going to go back and selective harvest the rest of it. Mm-hmm. And that was just an even trade. He opened up an acre and a half for me, which was what I needed for a food plot. He was real careful because you got to be careful with that because when you're clearing areas like that, everyone thinks you can clear it and then they wonder why nothing grows. Well, it's because they're getting rid of that topsoil and you get rid of that. It could take years and years and years to establish, at least in my experience, a fertile ground. Mm-hmm. So I planted that. First year I planted in a deer radishes and planting some other stuff to help out, or not frost seeded, but in the summer I also mixed in some of that biologic clover. Now we go ahead and went back in February, planted some more clover the following spring during turkey season. It came up so good. I know this isn't a good thing for selling clover every year, but I've had that 7-8 years now and it just keeps booming. People say clover 3 or 4 years, you keep frost seeding it and treat it right with fertilizer, you can get quite a longevity out of that. So
when you frost seed, every year I always chuckle when I see you do your stories or posts about it. You take a leaf blower, right? Like that you've jerry rigged up and you blow seed all over your food plot.
Hey, it works. We like to be hard workers, but hey, I'm lazy too. And it's this blower that they actually make now. It just goes on your everyday leaf blower. I just did fertilizer the other day and it drops it down the hopper. So it's not rusting anything, even with fertilizer, and going right out the tube. And I'll either walk around and do it or I'll be lazy, have one of the kids drive the ATV or something and sit off the back. And you could do about an acre in probably about 10 minutes, even toting of it.
It's pretty ingenious, really. Like I said, first time I saw it, I got a kick out of it because of the way it looks, but it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
It'd be cool to put thumbtacks in that thing or something and see what it does.
Yeah.
Sean's next undercover weapon, a leaf blower. Thumbtacks.
I do that with corn too. I mean, the Biologic has that screen blend that they have now that's Egyptian wheat, stuff like that. And I use that in the smaller plots. That's the stuff we're planting now. We're maintaining the clover now, but I'm getting some corn, some beans in. It's hard to do that when you don't have row crops and stuff, but I will mix in corn with that biologic blend. It has that screen. It's to hide your blinds and your stuff like that.
Okay.
I will do that in the middle of a food plot, maybe 100 yards wide. It's nice to see them, but you kind of want to have that shot opportunity. So I will start at one corner and just go about 2 tillers width all the way across the plot and start closing the distance as it gets too closer to your stand. And that stuff will get so thick that the deer will not cross through it. So it actually funnels them down to you. And the good thing is we're in northern Indiana, heavy snow. Come late season, the snow will push that down. And then they still have corn to go through. So,
when are you planting that? Like what time of year?
Matt, I'm planting those screens the same exact time you're planting corn. I think right now, if you don't get that in by mid to late June, you're kind of same thing with corn. I mean, it has about the same growing rate. Grows a lot taller, but it's a heck of a screen and a heck of a way to getting in and out of your plots. So really, even if you have big ground, and it's just something where, kind of, what was it? I think it was Adam Anderson did that thing where he mowed through the corn, a trail going right into the back of his muddies. It's kind of the same thing. So in the evenings, you can come down out of the back if you're playing the wind right and you're out of there.
Yeah.
So,
Sean, how about equipment? We talked about the leaf blower hack, but what else do you have or don't have that maybe you wish you did?
I I think my next investment is to get some type of drill, or that can be used on an ATV or side by side. That's going to help speed the process up. I mean, all of us, we're working class guys. I mean, and it's like, even you guys are constantly in, where it's in the studio, the case may be. People think that we're out in the field 24/7, and we don't. And some people are positive about chemicals. I'm a big fan of using chemicals and Roundup and stuff, because during certain times, if you had a drill, we can go to those existing plots right now, spray them, come back in. We're not working the ground, drill it. They start coming up again, spray it again, which saves so much time on packing a tractor up, going out there, playing the weather. So, but I think I would want to drill. I mean, I know we're talking about little food plots here, but even this year, I'm not using it as much, but I've worked the ground up, not having like a harrow or something to come back through. I broadcast the seed, which I did with the Egyptian wheat and corn, drag it in with a wooden pallet, throw a rope behind the side-by-side, just drag a wooden pallet just to kind of mix it up. When you are broadcasting, whether it's corn or beans or whatever the case, before we roll it, I'd say you want to go probably 1.5%. Like if you're planting a bag per 2 acres, you're going to want to plant about 1.5 bags of corn, because I'd say a third of that, when you go through, you're going to see that corn sitting on top. And corn and beans, they've got to get under 1/2 inch, but planting extra, which seed wise, you're spending a little more. But then again, I mean, it's what you can do. People come by the house or the farm all the time, and they're like, well, how do you have 1 acre of corn or 1.5 acres of corn? And it blows their mind that I broadcasted it. I mean, it works. You can do it on these little parcels. It's fun too. I mean, it takes a little more time. Your ears aren't growing as big because the corn's closer together. Sure. So you're kind of competing and stuff, but it works.
So maybe a guy doesn't have a leaf blower that's set up like yours. Can you hand broadcast corn?
Yeah, that's what I did till 2 years ago. Just a spreader, just a bag spreader, not a problem at all. So, but I mean, you got a lot coming out, and plus the hand spreaders, they don't carry. It's good to have kids because they'll just follow along in the 4-wheelers. I mean, you got 2 bags of corn, and you look at that, okay, bags of corn may cost, now I would say $150 for you. Now you're talking $250, $300. But how many people out there would be willing to pay $500 or $600 at the end of season to have 1 acre of corn or beans to hunt over? I mean, it's a cheap investment if you look at it that way. I mean, everyone always, when I go out for places to hunt in late season, it's, we're hoping there's just standing crops. And if you got beans or corn, especially beans, I mean, you can have a killer late December, early January hunt. So
sure. And talk about your process for understanding what kind of soil you've got to work with and what you do to condition it. I'm going to give some of these things. It can blow your mind. In Illinois, the guy went in there, and I had one area wasn't growing very good. And I talked to one of the guys. He says, well, they took the top seed soil off. I actually talked to the county people, which I've done here where I live in Indiana too. I've had them come on that certain plot of the food plot and dump the leaves and stuff from the county just to work back in the ground in that 1/4 acre area, just to get the dirt a little darker, start like a compost, because it was down to that virgin looking dirt that's just white, not really clay looking, but you could tell it's just not fertile. Yeah. Most of the other pieces I have around here, it's one of those hit or misses for planting because it's real dark muck ground. So you really, but when you do get it in there, it grows amazing. Because I mean, that I do soil tests, I keep up on that. And as far as the fertilizer, when I'm doing my corn and my beans, even though they're not really coming up in rows because I'm using little equipment, as soon as it comes out of the ground, I'm just putting regular 12-12-12 fertilizer. Granted, that first number being so much nitrogen, it also promotes weed growth, but it's Roundup ready, so you can spray it. Now on my on my clover plots, I'm going with a 0-60-60 or a 0-24-24 because beans, as well as what you guys probably know, clover, create their own nitrogen. So you don't need that. That's one of the things I used to put just basic fertilizer, 12-12-12 all over my clover. There was a couple of guys on the team, Brick Stewart and them, saying, man, I'm dealing with weeds out of control. And I didn't know why. Well, I'm adding more nitrogen, which
the clover's already creating, and weeds just feed off that nitrogen. So when it comes time to fertilizer, that's such a key factor in that, that I feel.
Sure. So let's say someone's listening to the show and they've got a little chunk of land, they've got the ability to manage it. What would you say, like, what are their first steps this summer, knowing that it's going to be mid-June, but I guess early June by the time the show comes out? What do they need to do to get started on a food plot for the fall?
Right now, if it's a new piece of ground, if I walked into somewhere like right now and I got it, and you're thinking, okay, I'm already behind the ball on planting corn or beans or anything like that, the majority of your killer food plots are the ones that you're planting late summer. So you got plenty of time. And those are your, biologics got so many blends, your deer radishes, your brassicas, sugar beets, whatever. Those are greens. Mm-hmm. And mostly from the beginning of the season, the majority of the season through November, they're hammering those greens. The deer radishes, everyone says that, like with some of your brassicas, they wait for the first frost and then they'll start to get sweet. With deer radishes, though, I found out they got the bulbs for late season, but they are hammering them September, October, the leaves. It's one of those plots that through you guys introducing to the deer radishes, I've been talking to some of the guys on the team. That's a great early season for the people that don't have the beans that haven't turned over yet and they're green. If you don't have that, deer radishes is a perfect thing to put in the ground. If it's a new piece of property, I'm looking for openings. I'm looking for places I can put little micro plots. And one of the things out there that you can't overlook, to me, it's been a save all. I've been in there. I planted it. You go back September 15th, check cameras. Most of our seasons where I hunt come in October 1st, and you don't have nothing to plant. You're like, what am I going to do? Winter wheat, oats, that's a save all. It doesn't produce the tonnage you need, but I'm telling you what, if there's no food in the area, the deer are coming, they're putting their head down and they're going to eat right away across that plot. So that's something you wouldn't overlook.
It's also if, say, you plant and you get no rain and all of a sudden you're like, crap, I got to replant. That's your kind of save all there too. It's like, all right, I know I can plant it pretty late and, get something green coming up that's going to suck them in.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's another good plot too that is great if you don't have a lot of deer in the area. Those oats that don't get eaten, come winter, springtime, now you got a foot tall oats. That's a plot that I will always go back in February before them oats start, or wheat starts growing again, and overseed with clover. Because you go back there in April, when you mow that, for some reason it chokes all the other weeds out, and you mow that wheat that was planted the year before, and you'll have the most lush clover under there. It's unbelievable. So
clover just continues to be a resounding do-all plot.
And not all clovers are created equal either. I mean, no. I think that clover, that biologic non-typical clover is the one that Mark and Terry love so much, and we've had a lot of luck with it over the years, and it's been pretty dynamite for them. And we'll add it into, say, our last bite mixtures, or like you said, frost seed it. Well, you plant last bite, at the end of the summer, going into the fall, and you get a great food plot, and then frost seed that in February. Boom, you got a brand new clover plot. Like Sean said, you really don't have much maintenance to it for years and years and years. I got two of my small, not even quarter-acre food plots that's what we did, and on the lease there, and we're just rolling with it. We might have to replant one of them this year. The farmer, he had baled it. Hit this field next to it. He bales, and for some reason, he kept mowing. This would have been 2 falls ago, I think. He kept mowing my clover field with it, but he was mowing it super short, right in the middle of summer, that kind of stuff. And I think it burned it out. And it came back a little bit, but the other smaller clover plot that we got, I mean, it's crazy how good it looks.
Sweet.
Yeah. So clovers is kind of an easier, when you don't have equipment, say you got to hire somebody to, or rent the equipment to come in. Clover is a great thing to put in, because then you aren't so dependent on them in future seasons.
Sure, yeah.
And it's year round.
It's going to keep coming back.
Yeah, year round, you pretty much got something.
Yeah, turkeys like it too.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Radishes, you were talking about radishes, like our success rate at the least went way up once Mark convinced me to plant radishes. Cause at the time we'd always have beans or corn or something also that the farmer planted. And it was just like you said, that early season, that transition when the beans defoliate, and I mean, they really suck into it.
Yeah.
Last year, I mean, it didn't rain soon enough after we planted. We had seed coated everything. So we were lucky in the regard that once we finally got rain 2 or 3 weeks later, it did start popping up. But the problem there was the beans were already kind of starting to defoliate. And so they were hitting it. They never let it get up. And so it looked like a yard, all season long. And even still, without producing the tonnage that you're accustomed to with the radishes, it still sucked them in. It was still crazy how they came to it. So
sweet.
Yeah.
It's a do-all.
It really is. I mean, and we're planting it again this year. And last year we also mixed in Final Forage with it, and it kind of did a cross section of radishes, Final Forage, mixed it up a little bit, trying to think, hey, we'll cover different parts of the season here.
Sure.
Realistically, radishes were all we needed. So this year, I think we're just going to straight radishes in that food plot. And like I said, we may have to replant the big clover plot. If we do, we'll probably plant Last Bite down there and add in the non-typical clover, and then come in February and frost seed it and get it back to being a clover plot.
Sure.
So
a lot of strategy involved.
That's the fun part though, right? Just trying to figure out what would they like.
Yeah. What do the neighbors not have? And
honestly, I think the biggest part of the strategy is trying to figure out when you have too much. So that's something I had to learn the hard way, is like, all right, we had all these extra little food plots tucked away here or there and everywhere. And it's like, all right, all I'm doing is slowing them down from getting from point A to point B in this one particular area. It's like, all right, so we quit planting this little hidey hole that was in the woods, and we just planted this field up top, put the blind up there, and we've had just a different type of a season since we started doing that a few years back.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Sean, anything else food plot related you think folks ought to know?
Yeah, there's a couple things. That was a good point that Matt brought up about.
You don't have
thanks,
to say
Sean.
that.
Having too much. It was years back when I tried to do that 15 acres. A farmer would do 10, and I'm like, I'm going to do 5 acres of, leave me 5 acres of beans or 6 acres of beans. And I was paying a little more. And there was a couple of guys, and Kelly Turner from the team. I mean, he's killed some giants over the years. I told him, I said, hey, I'm not down there late season. If you want to go down there, try to punch a tag. There might be a buck that's hitting those late beans, or shoot a few does, whatever you want. Just have at it, just keep an eye on the place. And he got a hold of me, and it was a point. He said, you've got so many deer piling into your beans, but the problem is they were coming from the neighbors, and there was too much there for them. And what Kelly was saying is, by the time they're getting to that point, by the time they make it down to where my blind was set up, it was way too late, and I switched it up following years where, like Matt was saying, putting different things around me. So there's always something, putting a little more, letting it grow up into a field to set aside, because them deer, they come down, it's late season. They're there for their bellies, and that's all they're thinking about. They put their head on the ground, and Kelly couldn't even get out of the blind because you had to walk back to the truck. So sometimes too big can be, definitely an issue. So definitely keep those plots small. And then the other thing I've noticed, some people they plant these blends that, I suggest, you guys suggest, and it's a new piece of property. They get in there, they plant it. They say, hey, I've seen maybe 3 or 4 deer a week. They don't like it. But beans and corn, deer know what that is all over the United States. Give it a chance, because I have 99% of the time, you plant something this year, they have no idea what a radish is in that area, or a sugar beet or whatever. Once they find out what what was that?
Could you put a sign up maybe for them?
Yeah, I send out flyers and stuff like that, and they catch on to it.
I can't read.
Radishes are about to come to you.
I can't read.
That's what the deer's thinking.
Yeah.
Like, what is this sign? It says no hunting.
It's nothing to me.
The hell, they're lying.
I'm telling you though, you wait till late season when the season's over, then them deer are in there, they're pounding them, they're ripping them out of the ground. Now they know what it is. That following year, you're actually having to up your size of it because once they found it, they're expecting it every single year. So give it a chance. So a new product, the first year, they don't know what it is. After that, they tear it up.
I would agree with that. You hear, we've had that experience actually a few times, and it surprised you how much they hit it then that following year. Cause you're like, man, is it, and it could be that you're, say you didn't do a soil test, or there could be part of it there that it doesn't taste right to them. That could be part of the issue if you didn't do a soil test and all that stuff leading into it. But say you did everything right, and first year you plant and they still aren't messing with it. I'd agree with Sean. You give it a couple of years and let them get used to it, and you'd be surprised. I had one year where, I think we planted. What was it? It wasn't radishes. It was maybe winter bulbs and sugar beets at the lease. And it wasn't until February until they started hitting it. And I'm like, son of a guy, I cursed it because it's like, this didn't mean no good. The season was over.
What curse word did you use?
Well, they were all 4 letters.
Oh, really?
If you can believe that. So it's just like, sometimes you got to think it through too, because they had other options there, beans specifically. And it's like, okay, all right. I didn't plant something they needed.
Like sometimes we project our ideas onto the deer. Like, I'm in this stand and deer's going to come by before dark. That deer's got no place to be at no particular time. And the same thing with food plots. Like, I put this destination here, they're going to come. Well, they may or they may not, depending on what they may come,
but it may be at midnight.
Or it may be after season closes.
February.
You just don't know. You just do the best you can.
Sean, I got a question for you. So, you pride yourself on being a working class guy, small parcels, do it yourself, for finding ways to make it work. What's your take on blind hunting versus stand hunting? Because obviously I think the rub for a lot of guys is it's that blind hunting. It doesn't feel like you're hunting. It's not fair. It's, it's kind of one of those age old debates that's popped up over the last 5-10 years as box blinds have become really popular. What are your thoughts on it? Because I'm sure you have a mix of, all kinds of ways that you're hunting there.
Traditionally there's something special about getting up in the timber in a hang on, hearing those leaves coming in November. That if I had to pick how I would harvest a deer every year, I'd love to be in a tree stand. I mean, that would be ultimate. But the blind hunting, since it's amazing how much I've learned from the guys that are on the team. I was hunting with Brandon Jennings way back, and he's like, hey, these deer are going to come out late season. Your shot's going to be like 40, 50 yards. And I looked at him like, all right, you're joking, you're nuts. Like, I'm not shooting 40, 50 yards. Here's a guy from Bow Madness. I mean, they're machines behind the bow. And he's like, well, how comfortable you shooting? I'm like, well, late season, I like to keep it 40 and in. Well, he's like, we're just going to move the blind. I'm like, well, I'm only here for a few days. Having these blinds elevated off the ground, whether you're putting a muddy soft side or you're putting one of the hard blinds, there's something about that. It's just the deer, they seem not to pay attention as much. And it has helped me over the years. It'd be great to kill it out of a tree stand, but introducing people to hunting, I wouldn't say it's a dying breed. I think we're positively promoting it, but we need to continue to promote it. And I have got more people involved, to include some of my children. We got 5 kids that may not. My son Cole, he'll hang in a tree with me. He don't care. But my daughters, once I started introducing, hey, let's get out in the blind. It's that much more time. It's, you can play the wind a little bit different. It's a whole opportunity that we're missing out. So right off the bat, people out there, don't knock the blinds. There's something special about being in a tree stand, but blind hunting to me has extended my season like no other.
Mm-hmm. I think other than Mark, because he's to the point where I don't know that he's really hunting at all out of stands anymore, because he's so effective out of blinds. But I think other than him, most people you would ask that question and say, well, okay, what's your favorite way to hunt? How would you prefer to kill a deer? They'd say in a stand, in the timber, during the rut, what have you. But I'd like to follow that up with another question and say, okay, if you've hunted both ways, like if you've have hunted both ways and say the last 5 years, which way have you been more successful? And I know personally for me, like it's not even a question. I would much rather hunt out of a tree stand. Your senses, to your point, like it feels more like you're in the game.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the year so a good, for instance, would be that staging plot on the lease. We used to, there's only one tree. Like this is a gigantic ag field that is surrounded by timber. And we call it the staging plot because to the right here, it just used to be just like this grown up grassy area. I'm sure it was pasture ground or whatever and just had grown up. There was one tree in the fence row and we hung in that tree. And because I kept always saying like, man, that's the place we need to be at. And finally I was like, screw it. Let's just hang a tree stand, double set in this one tree and see, if they stage up here in this little, overgrown grassy area before they jump over the fence and go in the food plot. We were having fantastic sits. I mean, it was like, oh my God, this is where we needed to be the whole time. And so then the following year, we decided to put a food plot in there. And then the following year, we made it a little bigger and we were having all these encounters. And all of a sudden there were so many deer. And I'm talking like, hey, it might be 6, 7, 8 deer, like a ton of deer for where we're hunting. Like this is, you'd be in the same boat. It's like, holy cow, what a night we had. And they're all over you. And it was weird because the way the terrain on this works, it's not weird. I think it's pretty much marketary. I've pretty much talked about this forever, but our thermals were dropping, going kind of through where they were coming up out of the bedding and going down into this, down into this bottom. And we were seeing deer, but we weren't necessarily seeing the shooters that we were after. And if we did, it'd be right at dark or, maybe a doe was getting antsy, they could just sense something wasn't right. We were hunting out of that, we were hunting out of that one tree in that fence row. And finally I was like, you know what? All right, we had a hidey hole food plot down below us, and there was a muddy bull blind sitting down there. And we were never having any luck down there. It's like they saw us walking down and getting into it all the time. So they're always, like neck bobbing us as they come out in the food plot. So finally I was like, screw it. Let's move that blind up top. We might be more, we might have more luck because we control our wind, our thermals. Let's just give it a shot. It's been a night and day difference as far as the only problem we had was human error. It was me trying to figure out how to be able to hunt out of a box blind and successfully open a window.
There's an art to it.
There's an art to it. But as far as seeing deer and having chances at bucks or seeing more bucks, it hadn't even been close. Night and day difference between what it used to be like and what it is now. And all I can say is I'm sure maybe I've grown a little bit as a hunter and learned a few things, but the big difference is the blind. And does that make me a shitty hunter? I don't think so. It may, you may say yes, Tim.
It's rhetorical.
Yes.
Okay.
But because that's the rub, like, oh, you're not a hunter.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's necessarily the case. So I think we're upping our odds. To your point, you can, there's more scenarios where you can hunt that spot undetected. So I don't know. My end goal is to kill a deer. If it's legal to hunt out of a box blind, like I really don't give two, what's if you don't like it that way. That's the way I'm hunting. But conversely, when it comes to the rut and we're hunting that farm, that's the worst spot is sitting that box blind and that staging plot. The best two spots are 2 tree stands, one in the north timber, one in the south timber. And I'd much rather all day long be in those tree stands. And you have to be a better hunter. No doubt. Your senses have to be on high alert. You have to learn how to judge where the deer are at in the timber and how far away they are. And you might not have time to range them and your movements as a doe below you. There's no doubt 100%. It's much harder to hunt out of a tree stand. But if I had my choice, would I want to hunt that way and kill a deer? Yes. Out of a tree stand. Have my more successful in a blind, yes.
There's the ideal world and the practical world.
End of the day, I would like to fill the freezer. So how am I going to do that? It's probably, I might get luckier out of that blind.
Yeah. And like Sean said, it's easier to introduce people to hunting in a blind. It's more comfortable, easier to conceal their movement.
Cameron's 6. He's been going with me since he's 4, 3, something like that. I still wouldn't be able to take him with me.
Right.
At 6, he's just not ready yet for a tree stand hunt. So, hey, I've gotten to spend 3-4 seasons where my little boy gets to hunt with me a little bit. And next up, I need to take Lola out and just a little scared. She frightens me.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, she frightens me a little bit, but to Sean's point, blinds help you. And it doesn't have to be a hard side blind. Like shit, I see a lot of success out of a pop-up blind. You elevate those things. It's on 5 feet elevation is like a game changer. We had one, a soft side 360, which is a little different than a pop-up, but same general. It's not scent proof. So same general principle in that degree.
Sure.
And we had it on a trailer that an old like side-by-side trailer that my side-by-side just didn't fit on it. Mm-hmm. So we converted it into a platform so that we could just a portable blind, right? And it couldn't have been 5 feet off the ground, and it makes all the difference. It's crazy.
Sweet.
Just a little height can go a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, maybe it's just because they can see under it. I don't know what it is, but it's you stick a ground blind out, and to me, it seems like even 3 weeks later, they're coming out, like you said, their head bobbing, they're looking at you. You pop it up off the ground, and there's times where they're so close you can't even shoot from the angle. But I think all of mine, I buy 10-foot legs, cut them in half so they're 5 foot high is what they are. So, and that's more than what you need right there.
Yeah.
I just remember Mark's hunt for danger and how that buck walked right to the blind.
He put the blind up like the day before.
Yeah. It was like almost right there underneath him.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy that it didn't seem to spook him.
Well, you'll hear, depending on what part of the country you're in, like, oh, my deer won't tolerate that. Oh, my deer won't stand for a blind. Or, oh, that this county's, in Texas County, they won't handle blinds. I think if you use them for 3, 4, 5 years and all of a sudden the deer herd that's grew up around them, I don't think that matters.
It's part of the landscape.
It's just part of the landscape. Yeah. Mark talks about it all the time. It's like structure for fishing, It's like it's like popping up a tree koi in the middle of your field. They love going to that structure.
Heck yeah.
So Sean, any other tips for us?
No, that tree koi thing. I mean, I cut more little saplings down and stick them in. That's a game changer right there too. I don't know what it is, but it's another way for them to close the distance. I've had tremendous, I haven't had a time yet that I planted a food plot, didn't go out to that 17 to 25 yard mark, put a tree koi in the ground. And by the time I come back in October, there were multiple scrapes around it every single time. It's just, there's something about it. Put a camera on it because you're going to get some good footage.
Are you using a certain kind of tree?
Actually, now, I've had better luck cutting down smaller cedars and leaving enough room so they can actually rub on it and stuff. But I've used some other ones like birch, and I just haven't had much luck with it. But I don't like to cut down the oaks, unless it's something where I'm clearing them for a plot. Mm-hmm. But cedar trees seem to work really, really good. Some younger hickories, walnuts and stuff, but cedars, I don't know what it is. It must be the scent. There's something they like about it. I know people that have used it treated cedar posts that you can buy from the market that have had tremendous success with that too.
I've been seeing more of that actually. What was it? I know. Was it maybe Greg? Somebody on the team. I feel like I just saw this on somebody, and it's like, I never thought of just using a cedar like a post and putting it in there.
Seen some guys put them like almost like a fence structure because they two vertical pieces and then a horizontal piece in between, and deer hitting that too.
Yeah,
lots of configurations.
Well, look, if there's any way that somebody can put a trick out there and to try to get a deer to get closer and give you 10 seconds to shoot it, we'll figure it out and try all kinds of stuff. No joke. I need 20 seconds, maybe 30.
That's what she said.
Well, Deercast news.
Is there?
There's a little bit of news. We talk a lot about the Midwest when it comes to deer hunting. We got an East Coaster here with
the main article, Lyme's disease.
Yeah. So there's a couple things going out there. One, Maine is working on legislation to increase funding for conservation to increase deer habitat out there because overwintering is difficult for deer. There was one year they got like 10 plus feet of snow just in one winter.
I can't imagine.
And deer yards are so important. We don't really have deer yards around here because we don't get the kind of snow they do up there. But these are places where deer will kind of herd up and use during the wintertime to avoid the heavy snow. And
so what do they, I mean, do they build some sort of like, you know, like up in Alberta and stuff, you see those fencing to help with, I guess, the drifts maybe, but like, what do you mean by a deer yard?
Well, so deer yards are natural kind of clearings that are sheltered in the woods that deer will congregate in the wintertime to avoid the heavy snows and stuff.
Okay.
So what they're wanting to do is increase funding for conservation so they can purchase more land to create more of this habitat. So deer have more of a fighting chance to make it through the wintertime. So bumping the budget by like $200 and some $1,000.
That ain't gonna do it. Let me tell you, you can't buy anything for $200,000. Land? They're wanting to buy land? $200,000. How many acres are they looking at?
I don't remember.
Here's 10 acres. I mean, like that. I can't imagine in Maine that would buy much.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, if it's forested ground, who knows how much it's.
I mean, if we were talking like 2.5 million, I could say, oh, okay, they're going to buy, you know, a few hundred acres or, you know, whatever. But maybe I wonder how much ground goes for per acre up there.
I don't know.
That just strikes me as funny. I wouldn't think you'd be able to get much.
You're going to be a land baron in Maine pretty soon.
Yeah. I have $100. I'm going to go buy me a farm in Maine.
And then they're also working on. So we have another article in Deercast about a potential vaccine to prevent people from getting Lyme disease.
I was just reading that this morning, and I found it funny. Some of the comments. So if a person had Lyme's disease, they were all like, "I'm all for it. Give me the vaccine." And her approach was very much like, "Yeah, I know vaccines are a sticky subject right now. So that aside, would you get it or not, knowing it could help you?" And you definitely had the anti-vaxxers like chime in. And then, but you had guys that had Lyme's disease are like, "Man, I was floored for 8 months. I couldn't move, like give it to me all day, every day." Terry being one of them. He's had it a few times, and he's had Rocky Mountain
spotted fever.
It's interesting because I didn't know this, but once you get it, you have your blood tested for those things. It's there forever.
Yeah.
So I know he's had some serious aches and pains due to that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, it depends on where you live in the country. There's a higher prevalence of Lyme disease out east than there is here in the Midwest.
Why is that, I wonder?
I think it has to do with the species of tick that carries it.
Yeah.
There's just more of them out there. I think it's the deer tick that tends to carry it more frequently than any other kind. But yeah, if you're in an area, I mean, I know like people out on the East Coast are very keyed into Lyme disease because everyone knows someone that has it.
And that was Erin Merrill's article.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
She does a great job.
Yep. Good enough for us.
Well, I wouldn't put it that way. Because
sorry, Aaron.
We work here, so.
Well, that's true.
They'll accept anyone.
All takers.
Just look at the team. We definitely accept anybody. This bearded fella
look at
here.
This guy.
I wouldn't want to run into him in a dark alley anywhere.
With sunglasses on and his beard tucked into a shirt.
Maybe he's got like, do you ever take your beard and then like put some braids in the bottom? Like I could see you rocking that look.
If I'm going out for a bike ride on the motorcycle with the wife, yeah, I've had my daughter's multicolor, whatever they call it, rubber bands just to try to keep it from blowing in my face.
Or her face.
Captain Lou Albano on the bike.
I could just see it. You don't put anything in it. And you're riding down the highway. He's got his beard coming back both sides of his neck. She's like, I can't see anything. No matter which way I lean.
Scratching my face.
Oh, yeah.
Well, how about that question of the day?
How about it?
Let's do it.
All right. The question of the day is probably brought to you by Tenzing Outdoors. Go further, hunt longer.
Hi, my name's Zach. I'm from Pennsylvania. I own and hunt a 110-acre farm, which is surrounded by about 2,200 acres of state game lands. And my question is, should I hunt and kill does on my property to manage for matured whitetail bucks, or should I allow the hunting pressure around the outsides of my property to kill does and just reap the rewards with bucks coming onto my property to rut and just hunt the bucks instead of taking the does off my property. I appreciate the information. Love the podcast. Hope to hear from you and answer this question. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
Did he say how big the piece was, his piece?
He said 110 acres is what he owns.
I would almost let the public ground, if it's hunted heavily, I'd almost let your place be the sanctuary. But I'd have to see like his deer numbers if they're just crazy out of whack. You know, he's got a bunch of does.
Yeah, Sean, what do you think?
I was thinking the same thing. If you got 2,300 acres bordering up against you, if there is big hunting pressure, I would probably focus on having food on your property and bedding and just focus on the does coming and then bucks knowing, hey, this is the only 110 acre piece that's got plots, because a lot of your game land, you can't put plots and stuff on. So if you keep the does coming to you as a safe haven, them bucks are going to be there come November.
Yeah, almost treating it like a reserve or preserve.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and being really careful about your intrusion there too.
Yeah, access in and out.
But then, like you said, Matt, it does depend on how many does are on your property.
I mean, if he's seeing 20, 30 does, you know, and he's only seeing 1 or 2 bucks, like, you probably need to shoot some does then.
Yeah.
Because that's not doing you any favors either.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little hard to know all the facts there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Zach. If you guys want to leave a question for us, just click the link in the show notes and it'll take you to the Drury Outdoors podcast page and click send voicemail. Wildlife Word. Wildlife Word is brought to you by the American Hunting Lease Association, your hunting access resource. Talking about clover. How much protein, how many grams of protein is in 85 grams of clover? So you got 85 grams of clover. How much protein is in there? 3 grams, 20 grams, 80 grams, or D, scientists maintain the actual amount is lost to history.
I'm going to let Sean go first because he's used to dealing in grams.
I could have sworn I read something that clover itself is anywhere, they say, between 15 and 20%, crude protein. So at 3%, what was the one after 3?
It was 3 grams, 20 grams, or 80 grams.
I'd probably go with 20 grams.
Okay.
Well, I was going to go with 80 until he said his little spiel, so I'm going to go with 20 now. And I'm very much that guy that can be influenced at the last minute.
It's good to know. It was 3 grams.
Well, that's not much.
It's not.
Hell, I get 24 out of 1 scoop of level one from first form.
Yeah. It is interesting to know that because it's like, that's why deer are always eating. I mean, they have to get so much because the food is not very nutrient dense. So that's just a lot of clover to have to eat.
They chow down on it. I mean, if you watch them eat, they don't lift their heads. They just, like a vacuum, just go through it.
And you think like that's a big animal. Same thing like horses and cattle. I mean, they're just always eating because they've got a lot to digest.
Well, I wonder how many grams of protein something like radishes or, you know what I mean? Something that's more hardy. Would it have more or no?
It's unknowable. No one knows.
We got to get Bobby Cole back on.
Yeah.
Bobby Logic.
Please go through the nutritional information of all browse. Yeah. Acorns would be interesting to know.
I would think like corn and beans would be high, wouldn't it?
You'd think so.
Higher?
I don't think corn actually has as high. It's more the carbs and stuff like that. And that's for the winter. I don't really think they have much protein. Yeah,
you're right.
I just like the conjecture that's happening here.
Why do you gotta throw geeky words into it, Tim?
Yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say, what's that mean?
The guessing.
Yeah, she's got a public education too. Tim,
shoot around and shoot the breeze about nutritional facts we don't know.
Tim likes to make me look bad during the wildlife word. That's basically what it boils down to.
No, well, that's 2 of us. I don't know many of them. I can't run a calculator, let alone an iPhone. So
calculator.
I love his accent. It just came out today, man.
That Northern Indiana accent.
Sean, if somebody wants to follow along with everything you're doing, where can they see you at, man?
Just right now I have the Instagram page and Facebook, and that's about it.
What about Critical Mass, the show you're a cast member of that Drury Outdoors produces?
Oh, that show? Yeah. Well, this should be a pretty good season coming up here. We naturally got for the whole cast itself I think that starts airing in July. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think we're late June, like 29th, 30th, somewhere in there in July, first week of July. Yep, basically every season. So what's your handle over on Instagram? At Sean Lundy DOD or
Sean Lundy at Drury Outdoors.
Yeah.
At Matt Drury 81.
At Thinking Woodsman. Am I right?
The Thinking Woodsman.
The Thinking Woodsman.
Too long. Should have changed it.
Yeah. All right.
Still time to register for the hunt, but that time is growing short.
Yeah, you only got like a month left to register for the hunt giveaway with Mark and Terry.
Yep. So head to DeerCast and do that if you're interested. Sean, you are not eligible. Sorry.
How is that? Are they hunting with both of them? How does that?
Yeah. So basically, you get 2 days with Mark, 2 days with Terry in Missouri, and you can pick the weapon, so bow, gun. So we'll with Missouri being over the counter, we have the flexibility. And I think last year or the year before, whenever, they started at Terry's place and then went to Mark's maybe. I forget. So maybe this year they'll switch it up. Basically every other year they switch whose place they start at.
And I switched up the contest rules a little bit. I should have probably asked about this. It's 2 days at Mark's place with both Mark and Terry and the winner in saddles using an atlatl.
We're going to clip this off and send it to Mark.
They're both dangling into the tree around.
I wouldn't say Mark's anti-saddle. He's anti-Tim.
He's anti-Tim. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it.
But no, so if you killed whoever's place you goes to first, if you kill, then your hunt's over. Yeah, it's $1, and you got 2 days at Mark's and 2 days at Terry to get it done. They're probably 45 minutes apart.
Pretty good odds to get it done.
Yep, they're going to get you in front of one, no doubt. So, unless EHD hits, we should have a pretty damn good year at Terry's place. I don't know what kind of shape Mark's in, but I'm sure it's in pretty good shape unless they get hit with EHD as well.
Sure.
Yeah,
if
exciting.
So, then you're coming to hunt with Tim.
Even worse, Matt. I always think about it like, because they're always like, oh, why don't you have such and such come hunt with you? It's like, okay, let's go down the list of reasons why not to. First, lodging. Second, shitty hunting. Third, chance of killing things slim. Fourth, to none.
There's no intrinsic value here.
None at all. Because I'd love to have like, hey, so-and-so famous person, come hunt with me for the worst hunt of your life.
You got time to kill and don't want to get your hands bloody.
It's like, hey, you should invite Mike Trout down. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. Hey, Mike, you're gonna have to stay at a motel in Ellsbury that I wouldn't put really my worst enemy in.
The low grade fever is free with the hotel room.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ellsbury.
Hey, I love Ellsbury. It's a cool town. Shout out to Cadillac Bills.
Shout out to all my people in Ellsbury.
I'm just saying, I wouldn't be your first choice of where to go hunt with a person to hunt with.
Yeah.
Just ask Scott. He's got to do it all the time. Poor guy.
Oh, all right. Well, stay tuned. Next week is episode number 214.
It's the one after 213.
Yeah, there may be some more casual swearing.
Good or bad for you? Was it too much? I'm sorry. Sometimes
I'm comfortable with it.
Sometimes I'm going to get an email, I'm sure.
Someone's mom is going to send in a message.
I'm sorry in advance. Sometimes it gets away.
Well,
it gets away from me.
I'm working towards more casual swearing, so I'll meet you in the middle. Dag nabbit.
Sorry to subject you to this, Sean. You can leave now.
Oh, I'm enjoying this. So I can check out of here. I got to find one of my daughters to figure even how to get off this thing. So
yeah,
let's let it roll. See what happens at the Lundy house.
I think it's Go ahead.
I even told the wife, I said, hey, let's put the dogs away. I mean, it's just, there's no telling what could happen. UPS guy show up, something. Who knows?
This is a special day. Put the dogs away. Honey, put the dogs away.
Get the good tarp out. We're starting Lundy camp.
We're on the podcast. That's it.
I love it, man. Well, we appreciate you jumping on with us. It's been fun. I know you got a big season ahead of you. Lots planned. Good luck. Safe hunting. And we'll probably see you here. And
absolutely.
Well, actually, we're going to see you tomorrow on a Zoom call.
That's right.
All right.
You guys take care. I appreciate it.
See you, Sean.
Thanks, buddy.
You got it.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
for watching, everybody.
Until next time.
You got it.
Peace out.
Deercast is giving you the chance to hunt with Mark and Terry Drury. Head over to deercast.com to enter.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV was brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's.